Greetings, and I can scarce believe your eyes, but 'tis I, Robin Hood, official outlaw of Nottingham town. I'm here in my 21st century city of Nottingham, which lies at the foot of the world famous Sherwood Forest, and on this day I bring important news. We are rallying the people of this land to join us on our quest of greening the grey, where we put the green pieces of the jigsaw back and create a land where nature survives and wildlife thrives. And why are we doing this? This land is our home and its future is in our hands. I'm actually in Barker Street Rest Garden, and believe it or not, this area here once was the industrial centre of a worldwide empire in machine-made lace. A story of transformation in this area is fascinating. In the 17th and 18th century, Nottingham was still a small garden town. This area here was lined with big old town houses, some of which were like minor stately homes, and they all had ornate gardens with ponds and orchards and fountains. Smaller town houses were dotted around, all linked by tree-lined avenues with cherry blossom on the trees. All this was centred on the ancient St Mary's Church and had splendid views over a green and pleasant countryside of the Leicestershire Hills and the Trent River Valley. What a picture! But 50 years later, this area here was transformed into one of the biggest slums in the whole of the British Empire by the lace industry. This was a price of progress. Likewise, Sherwood Forest, home sweet home. Sherwood Forest used to stretch 30 miles north to south, 10 miles east to west. That's from Nottingham Castle in the south to Retford, the town of Retford, in the north. But over the centuries, through its exploitation, Nottingham Forest has shrunk and shrunk, and all that remains is 1.25 square miles, which is the ancient heart of it up at the country park in Edwinstowe. Now, this is a very sad story because Sherwood Forest is still one of the best places in the world for ancient oak trees, but the number is finite, and it's also a home to our rarest plants and wildlife. So, in a nutshell, my friends, over the centuries, both in city and county, there's been a massive loss of green areas and the associated wildlife with it. Now, this just won't do because this land is our home and its future is in our hands. So today I'm going to introduce you to some local green champions who are doing their bit to restore life to the land. The first person you're going to meet today is a friend of mine, Sarah Manton. She's a local artist, all-round general busybody, and of course a fellow mastermind behind the Sherwood Peoplesforest project. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, my medieval friend, and welcome to Barker Gate Rest Garden, one of the smallest parks in the city. Until the middle of the 19th century, this was an overflow cemetery for St Mary's Church in the Lace Market, as you'll see from all the gravestones around the edges. And then it became a public rest garden, somewhere where people could come and sit and have a quiet moment in the city and reflect. Unfortunately, over the years, it fell into disrepair and became a dark and lonely place. And unfortunately, the moss started to grow on the path, so people didn't feel that they could come in. It became slightly more threatening. In 2016, we, the Nottingham City Women's Institute, were looking for a little patch of green to grow some flowers for bees. It wasn't quite as simple as that when the City Council offered us Barker Gate Rest Garden, and we became the Friends group for this whole park. With the help of the cemeteries team and the City Council's volunteers, other volunteer gardeners and local businesses, we stripped out all of the moss, we took up all of the weeds, and we started to plant. To date, we've planted over 2,000 bulbs and flowers, and it's a thriving place for the bees and the birds. As you can hear, the birds are singing overhead, and it's become a real haven in the city centre for not only nature, but for the people that enjoy this space. They can come here in their lunch hour or during their leisure time and just listen. You wouldn't believe you're right in the heart of the city centre, and we're only 2 minutes walk away from Old Market Square.
So this is a great example, Sarah, of how community groups can come together to restore any bit of forgotten about or disused piece of land and restore life to it for the benefit of all. A great example. Well, of course, the plan is, this is one piece of the jigsaw. We need to put all the pieces of the jigsaw back where we can.
Absolutely. Nottingham is still one of the greenest cities in the UK, but we have lofty green ambitions and we want your help.
So this is a plan for Sherwood Peoplesforest. we collectively are going to plant a spiral of oak trees from the walls of Nottingham Castle to the heart of Sherwood Forest at the Major Oak, and in doing so restore the natural world and bring life back to it. Now, of course, when I say oak trees, we can't plant oak trees everywhere because their size and longevity, so the oak tree is symbolic of this project, and it represents any native greenery, trees, fruit trees, plants, flowers that will bring life and colour and wildlife to forgotten areas. And in doing so, we'll put the green pieces of the jigsaw back and restore the majesty of Sherwood Forest, and also return Nottingham from its status of being a garden town to a garden city for the 21st century.
And we'd like you to help us to do that. If you've got a little patch of land somewhere near to you, near home, we can help you to find out who owns that land, maybe develop some space that hasn't been looked after before. We're calling them little grot spots or spaces in between in the city. And we'd like to get the green back into our garden city.
So, I mean, on your own doorstep and further afield, you guys can help us restoring this land, because as you've heard, this land is our home and its future is in our hands. Now, we are going to meet some other green champions who are doing their bit to breathe life into this land and give you ideas about what you guys could do. Onwards.
Hello, I'm Penny Poyser, Chair of Nottingham Good Food Partnership and a real avid fan of the People's Forest. Love the idea of the mighty oaks being the talisman, but when you look at a forest, under that great canopy you have all the other marvellousness that grows underneath it. And the bit that I'm really passionate about is the idea of creating a fruity forest. Imagine that. So, you know, we've got little glimpses of that. So in Sneinton Market right now, you can go and pick apple trees in Sneinton Market. When we consider the glorious abundance that is the history of this city, we need that modern abundance now. So it's really getting people excited and engaged with the idea of kind of public harvest. So as you're wandering along, it's everybody's right to scrump an apple, right? So you create that opportunity. But I think when we think very rigidly, you know, maybe from old-fashioned sense of design where everything's really constrained, this is about nature and abundance in the city, and more about that busy urban environment being coated in this beautiful green cloak. That's where I want to live. That's where I want my kids and my grandkids to be, that they're breathing fresh, clean air in the centre of what is an urban desert at the moment. So my passion about supporting and being involved with the People's Forest is just seeing how we can bring all those things together, this multiplicity of the huge talent and the wealth of knowledge and experience in this city. But even more than that, kind of looking at that big picture, is we need to create a system which is fit for purpose for the next generation. And at the moment that's missing. We cannot miss this opportunity.
The People's Forest project is a fantastic project that we're really happy to be involved in. It's linking up Sherwood Forest to the city of Nottingham and the rest of the county, spiralling out from the Major Oak, Robin Hood's famous old tree. And the idea is that trees will be planted in community spaces, in schools, and in all the green spots, linking them all up together and reconnecting that forest, Sherwood, with the city. The idea is that we're going to plant 80 oak trees, Sherwood oak trees, in 80 different primary schools all around Nottingham. We've already begun. Lockdown has meant that we've had to put a bit of a halt on it with the schools being closed, but now they're opening again after the summer, and we're going to pick it up right again. And by the time we open, we'll have 80 new oak trees in 80 primary schools.
I'm Ian Major from the Sherwood Forest Trust, and I'm at the Ranges on the edge of Hucknall, Nottingham City and Newstead Abbey. A small green oasis. But 20 years ago, this was the site of regeneration of a colliery site. 20 years of growth, of greening. It's been the Sherwood Forest Trust's mission to stop the fragmentation on a landscape scale, to halt the decline, the loss of biodiversity, the loss of woodland, to green the grey, to bring back the verdant landscape of historic Sherwood Forest. From colliery spoil to a young whippersnapper woodland in 20 years. The dappled shade, the moths and butterflies, the moss on the trees, the plants under the canopy. What a verdant, beautiful space to enrich the soul. But remember this, the actions we take today create the future.
We create the future. Wise words there from David Bellamy, Reincarnate. So, how can you get involved in Sherwood Peoplesforest? In a suitable area, you could plant some native greenery or a tree, an oak tree or a fruit tree, but remember, it has to be the right tree in the right place. You could join a forest school or a community garden, or maybe even start your own. Or you could donate to the Peoplesforest Just Giving page. So good people, join us as we start breathing life into this land, our home. Robin Hood lives.